Hello and welcome to Off the Cuff, OTC, our new monthly show, which involves a conversation with a very interesting guest and even more importantly, a very powerful audience. Our guest this month is Mr. Arun Jaitley. If I tried to describe all his portfolios, it will take a couple more minutes. So let's get down to talking right away. 7.5% growth, a little bit more now projected. If I ask for a show of hands, how many think does it feel like 7.5% growth? I think 90% would say at least.
And there's a good reason for it.
That it doesn't feel like 7.5%.
I'll tell you there's a good reason for it. Because this 7.5% growth rate, what is it being sustained on? It's being sustained predominantly on three factors. It's being sustained on much higher public spendings, much higher foreign direct investment, and a significant amount of improvement in urban demand. You see, what has happened is that your sample audience here is the private sector. Now, India's private sector had overstretched itself. It's built surplus capacities, it's taken huge amounts of money from financial institutions and banks. It's now busy servicing. Many of them are unable to service those amounts. And therefore, their contribution in this is not what it really should have been. The private sector has actually normally leads the government. But in more challenging times, the public investment has to come up in front and lead the entire process.
But you also have this panoply of horrible three-letter words, CAG, CBI, CVC, etc., etc., etc.
You see,
I'm not counting RBI. Are we going to see a large-scale criminalization of bad debt?
you see, the bad debt or the NPAs that you speak about, I analyze it and divide it broadly in two categories. The first category are those which are essentially on account of the business cycles. And therefore, there is no element of, let's say, any kind of misdemeanor or dishonesty involved. Now, sectors which are doing badly and therefore NPAs increase because of that business economic cycle, I think is more attributable to the economy. There is a second category of cases. And that second category of cases is loans given, inadequate securities taken, the businesses, I don't know whether people initially intended to repay them back or not repay them back, and suddenly there is very little chance of their recovery. Now, I think it is these categories of cases which from an ethical point of view presents a serious challenge.
Let's speak the M word then, Mr. Malia.
All I can tell you is he's not only brought himself a bad name, he's brought a terrible name to India's private sector. He's given them a bad name, and the faster he settles, the better it is for him and for India's private sector. Otherwise, for people to start, banks and others to start trusting leaders of industry and well-known leaders, names in the industry itself will become difficult.
But the fact also is that the public opinion right now is in a very abrasive stage. People want somebody punished. And there are dangers in criminalizing many of these things because it might lead to a situation of na khuda hi mila na visale sanam. You may lose the money and you may not get the man back.
You see, every NPA, as I said, is not necessarily a criminal law violation. But the whole objective is that there has to be an honest intent that this is public money which has to be paid back. You can't have a situation where 20 people are holding up so much money belonging to the banking system that they are preventing the banks from lending to 20,000 others. And that's the position at which we stand today. Now, additionally, even in your infrastructure setup, you need a dispute resolution mechanism where, you see, as you mentioned CAG and CBI, where without fear of CAG and CBI, you can quickly negotiate. I have in this budget announced that resolution of disputes relating to public contracts, I'll now have a legislative banking. We didn't have a bankruptcy law. Now, I've for the first time been working on it, and now I introduced it in December in Parliament. We are now in March, and the committee is doing its final reading. In the next few days, I'm expecting the report of the committee. In the second part of the budget session, I'll probably take that law up for consideration. And you seriously need an early exit law as far as India is concerned.
We have Deepak Parekh sitting here. His bank can take a decision which, if it goes wrong, shareholders will ask questions, board will ask questions, RBI will ask questions, but CBI will not ask questions. And CBI will not come to the home of his manager who gave the loan 5 years after she retired. You put public sector banks at a great disadvantage.
No, I think I read recently that the Supreme Court has now said that CBI has jurisdiction over his bank also.
Well, I thought you will take CBI jurisdiction away from public sector banks.